Hi everybody, welcome to episode 1 of the WaveBack Music Podcast. Today's game is Balloon Kid for the Game Boy. Enjoy! Hello there, and welcome to the WaveBack Music Podcast. My name is Chris, and I am your host. And since this is our pilot episode, let me start off by explaining what we're doing here. The purpose of this show is to highlight some of my favorite video game music. Every episode, I'll choose a game, and we will listen to a handful of tracks from that game, and between tracks, we'll discuss. We'll talk about the games themselves, we'll talk about the composers, how the music relates to the games, and, well, just generally appreciate how awesome some of this stuff is. The name, WaveBack, kind of comes from a combination of all the cool names being taken already, and wave referring to the different waveforms that make up chiptunes, and back referring to the fact that a lot of this is going to be retro stuff. I'm not limiting the show to chiptunes, but there's probably going to be an awful lot of them. Speaking of chiptunes, the first game that we'll be talking about is one of my favorite, I feel, overlooked gems, Balloon Kid for the Game Boy. This game features a wonderful soundtrack by the legendary Hirokazu Tanaka, which is a name you're probably going to hear a lot of on this show over the span of its tenure as a show. Balloon Kid, where do I even start? When this game came out, this was a Game Boy game. It was released back in 1990, I believe. It was part of a string of sequels for the Game Boy that took their original games to the next level, which is something that a lot of Game Boy games tended to do. You had things like Super Mario Land, which was an interesting spin on the Super Mario Brothers motif that existed. You had things like Metroid 2, Return of Samus, introducing a whole lot of innovations to that series, Kid Icarus of Myths and Monsters, and Balloon Kid was a sequel to Balloon Fight, which was an NES launch title, and basically a Joust clone when you get right down to it. In the game, Balloon Fight, you floated around as a little character, or two different characters with balloons on their backs, and you just kind of flapped your arms around. It had really interesting physics to it, and you would flap your arms around and try to pop each other's balloons. And that was really the long and the short of it. There was traps and stuff, lightning bolts and fish that were out to get you, and it just kind of went stage by stage, got more difficult as time went on. Musically speaking, which was also another hip Tanaka soundtrack, the music in the original game, the song that it's most well known for is a Balloon Trip, which was a mode where you would just be your little character, and there was this whole stack of obstacles in your way, and you would just kind of see how long you could go. And the music that played over it was just really one of those all-time classic hip Tanaka NES songs. For Balloon Kid, that music is kind of reprised in here, but not exactly. The song itself does play in the game for bonus stages. We'll probably get to that one a little bit later, because I would be remiss if I didn't play that wonderful tune. But I feel they really took the music to the next level in this game since the gameplay itself turns the Balloon Fight gameplay on its head and turns it into something new, which, while Balloon Fight was a Joust clone, Balloon Kid is a full-on adventure platformer with the play mechanics of Balloon Fight, which was, I think, a genius move. I think the game is incredibly fun. It's got a great sense of style to it, and really the music just ties it all together. So, since the game turned into a platforming adventure game, the music really reflects that, and kind of reflects this open adventure feeling to it. So we're going to start with the title screen song, which really sets the tone for where this game is going to be going. So here is the title screen for Balloon Kid. you can kind of hear some of the uh, pieces of that balloon fight song in there, but it's really just kind of its own thing, and it just kind of plays along. It's very relaxed. This game is not super high intensity, and this title screen really sets the stage for that. And it's got that kind of weird goofball tone towards the end of the track where it just gets really weird and then kind of loops back around to a bunch of major notes and is very calming. And that really, when you turn on this game and you see the logo kind of slowly show up, and it's just, we've got balloons, we've got some really cool music. I think we're in for a good adventure. But the next thing that happens after you hit the start button is your brother has a whole bunch of balloons tied to his back and starts floating away. So the point of the game is you're a girl named Alice, and you've got your limitless supply of balloons, of which you can hold two at a time. You inflate them, and you go chasing after your brother through Pennsylvania, which is not Pennsylvania, this state. It's pencil, like the writing tool pencil, and all the buildings look like pencils and erasers and pens and matchsticks for whatever reason. And it's one of those great quirky things that really sums up Nintendo gaming. It just has that real, what's that, sense of style to it. So the next song that we're going to play here is the Pennsylvania track, which does the absolute one of the best jobs I've ever seen of setting the stage for what kind of game you're going to be playing in the first level. It opens up with the piece of the balloon fight song, and then transitions into something so much more beautiful. So enjoy Pennsylvania. One of my all-time favorites. This is really one of my favorite Hip Tanaka songs. And this soundtrack is just so high on my list. I love this stuff. But that song in particular, just the way it makes... It has that perfect playing in the middle of the afternoon feel to it. Even though the game is in black and white, you can tell the skies are blue, the clouds are white. You're just floating along with your balloons, and it's got the right level of intensity to it. Like the drums kind of give this piece of action to it from time to time, and then the drums just kind of cut to a cut time, and you feel all the great feelings that this kind of game should evoke. And man, this song just nails it in so many ways. And one of the really great telltale Hip Tanaka things that I like that he does is the way he plays with the bass. and how the bass kind of goes higher and higher. And the bass sound that's typically used in the Game Boy is a very unique sound. It's pretty different from the NES version of bass music. In fact, there is an NES version of this game, or there's a Famicom version of this game, which is actually a Hello Kitty game. It's been reskinned and made into full color. And the instruments that the game uses it's the same instrument set from another great hit Tanaka soundtrack, Dr. Mario. But for some reason, for me, it doesn't really connect the same way that the Balloon Kid soundtrack does on Game Boy, because you can tell that this music was clearly designed to come out of a Game Boy, because it sounds perfect. It sounds exactly as you would want it to sound. And a great chiptune soundtrack, a great soundtrack for an older game, is the kind of game that transcends the medium. And this is one of those songs that truly does. It doesn't sound like bleeps and bloops. It takes those crazy waveforms and turns them into something beautiful. And this song is just that. And the way it starts off with that balloon fight thing, the balloon trip little piece of music, and then transitions and just kind of explodes into this. The whole world is ahead of you. The whole game is ahead of you. Take your time and have fun. And that really sums up this game. So, the piece of music that I keep referring to, the balloon trip, is, like I said, it's the bonus stage music in this game. So, as you're progressing in this game, you'll come across Game Boy-shaped doors, and if you jump into them, you get to do a little balloon minigame, which is, I believe there was a bonus stage just like this in Balloon Fight. And you basically just reprises in Balloon Kid, and it plays a Game Boy rendition of the Balloon Trip song. So, here is Bonus Stage. Another all-time classic piece of music. That song has been reprised a lot of times in Smash Brothers in particular. The new Smash Brothers for 3DS and Wii U has a wonderful, just a truly joyous rendition of the music from Balloon Fight. That song in particular. But yeah, that one's been around. That one's showed up a lot. Because Balloon Fight's been re-released a lot of times. And it's not a spectacular game, but it's got a lot of character to it. And I always love it when they reference it and throw it in things like Tetris DS, or making the Animal Crossing villager use the balloons in Smash Brothers. Cute little things like that. But yeah, that's the bonus stage music in this game. And it's no matter what it's coming out of, that track tends to be a joy. Now, the next one we're going to listen to is called Over the Ocean. There's not a whole lot of stage music. It actually recycles itself. There's not a lot of stages to the game. It's not super long, but you've got the Pennsylvania, and then you've got Over the Ocean, and you've got kind of a in the woods stage music. The other main stage music, this Over the Ocean, is another really, really good piece of music. It's very strange. It's like a lot of Tanaka was very prone to this kind of stuff, of throwing an oddball nature into things. But this track in particular is it's got a weird beat to it. It's got a lot of weird sounds to it, but it also fits in with that. This is the kind of game you're playing on a sunny afternoon. Like, this is the game that you just picked up because you're sitting there and you just want to play a quick game. And this music just really encapsulates that feel. So, without further ado, here's Over the Ocean. said, that is just a delightfully bizarre track. But it really fits. It fits the mood of the stage and the general bizarreness of this game. I'm pretty sure if when you're running around on this stage, you encounter the uh, little bird characters from Balloon Fight, and you can pop their balloons. And they're still making that really weird flapping noise that they make during Balloon Fight. There's little pieces of fire with legs that are running around. It's just such a strange game. But as you reach the end of these stages, which there aren't that many, like I said, this game isn't extraordinarily long, so we're only going to do a few more short tracks from here on out. But you've got a couple of stages, and then you get to fight a boss. This first piece that we're going to play right now, well, this next piece, not first, that we're going to play right now is the music that plays when you complete a stage. So, enjoy. See, there again is the example of him using high bass notes and just kind of creating this really... I don't know why it is that it appears this way to me, the way it just kind of... That high bass sound coming out of a Game Boy just kind of pulls at my heartstrings, and it's pure nostalgia for me. But it's so calming. You've beat this stage, take a quick break, listen to this calming music, and then we'll move on to something else. Which we do. We move on to other stages, and eventually, like I said, you fight a boss. So here's a quick clip of the boss music from Balloon Kid. Now, again, in a brilliant move, the way Tanaka handles this is that you've got that nice calming music between stages, and you feel like you've accomplished something when you hit that little excitement, that celebratory piece. Then it's followed by the calm music when you beat a regular stage. But when you beat a boss, he composed a totally separate piece for just when you defeat a boss. Kind of like in Super Mario Brothers, when you beat a stage, you get to the flagpole is one thing, but when you beat a Bowser decoy and you get to the mushroom retainers, or Toad, as it were, it's a totally different piece of music that fills you with it feels a little bit more majestic. And Tanaka hits at something like that in this game wonderfully well. When you beat a boss, you hear this wonderful music. So here is Boss Defeated. The bosses in this game are probably the most stressful piece. So when you finally take one of them down, the reason the bosses tend to be stressful is that a lot of times they involve you letting go of your balloons and playing the game as a platformer. And the platforming mechanics on their own, minus the balloons, aren't spectacular. And I don't really mean to say that to detract from the game, as I think it's very intentional. Like, Alice without the balloons is very unwieldy. She jumps and bounces all over the place in a very strange way. The physics are just bizarre. But a lot of the bosses require the tried and true jumping on a boss's head or weak spot or something to defeat them, and you don't have that force when you're holding balloons. So the fact that you need to do that to bounce up and down off of bosses can make them pretty stressful. And when you finally beat a difficult boss and this song pops up, you just feel exactly right. It's the exact right music for the exact situation, and it's just a wonderful piece of work. So we have one last track to play before we call it a night, and that's the ending music. Obviously, it's Hip Tanaka's done a lot of great ending musics. When you think about the ending to Kid Icarus, or you think about particularly the ending to Metroid for NES, really, really great music. And this is, I mean, obviously not his finest work, but it's a really interesting piece in that it sounds very sad, but at the same time very relieving. And it's not extraordinarily long, but it's a very cool way to end this game, and a cool way to end this episode. So, without further ado, your final piece, Rescue. The way this track pulls in that extra, it just really hammers home that connection to Balloon Fight, is just remarkable. And like I said, this whole soundtrack is remarkable. But that's going to be it for our show. Thank you everybody for listening. I have no idea how many of you there are. This is the first episode. But I had a lot of fun talking about this game. I hope I didn't bore everybody to death. And I hope you really enjoyed listening to the music, because it's just really great stuff. I can't say enough good things about it. Really one of my favorite Tanaka soundtracks of all time. If you like what you've heard here, or if you have a suggestion for another game you'd like me to cover, shoot us an email over at geekade.com. Head over to Facebook, find us there, or you can find me on Twitter at geekadechris. Shouldn't be too difficult to find. That's Geekade, Kris, because I spell my name like a crazy person. And yeah, that's pretty much the show. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.